morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM Today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Saturday, 26 July 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Japan's economic outlook is being closely watched as investors assess the staying power of a market. Surge initially fueled by a U.S.-Japan trade agreement promoted by Donald Trump, with questions arising about Japan's pledged $550 billion investment in the U.S. regarding technological advancements. The Japanese panel head has called for robust privacy protections to support the development of artificial intelligence even as they're rated legal. On the diplomatic front, Japan will commence the regular intake of assistant language teachers from India, marking the inaugural dispatch under a governmental program aimed at bolstering regional exchange. Security talks with the U.S. have encompassed discussions of a scenario wherein the U.S. military might deploy nuclear weapons in a crisis situation. Japan's political scene faces potential instability should Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba step down following an inconclusive House of Councillors election that yielded no definitive victor. The World Exposition in Osaka has seen a Latvian employee achieve considerable popularity on social media through sharing his experiences of living and working in Japan. Elsewhere, Chinese researchers are endeavoring to recreate an ancient seismograph invented by Zhang Heng nearly 2 millennia ago, driven by present-day earthquake anxieties, including a predicted quake in a Japanese comet. Meanwhile, Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui, accompanied by fellow crew members, has arrived at Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, in preparation for an upcoming NASA SpaceX mission. China is facing both environmental and technological hurdles. Torrential rains in northern China, particularly around Beijing, have caused 2 deaths and forced the evacuation of thousands. The record rainfall in Fuping County, Hebei Province, measured 145 mm per hour. Meanwhile, Premier Li Qiang is advocating for global collaboration on artificial intelligence, cautioning against its monopolization by a few nations and corporations. China plans to spearhead the creation of an international AI development organization and an international coordination center. He highlighted the crucial balance between AI advancement and security at the World Artificial Intelligence Conference, WHAM. In a historic move, China's premier naval submarine training facility has admitted 10 women into its bachelor's program for the first time in 72 years. The country also faces supply chain concerns exacerbated by tariffs instituted by former U.S. President Donald Trump, particularly concerning goods rerouted via Southeast Asia. Shifting focus to Taiwan, a recall effort targeting 24 opposition lawmakers labeled as pro-China failed. Voters rejected all recall motions preventing the ruling DPP, Democratic Progressive Party, from securing a legislative majority. The situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate, with escalating violence and a severe starvation crisis hindering ceasefire efforts. Israeli airstrikes and gunfire have resulted in at least 25 Palestinian deaths, many occurring as they sought humanitarian aid. Over 70 Palestinians have reportedly died due to Israeli attacks and starvation, facing increasing international condemnation, including from key allies, and following reports of over 50 additional Palestinian deaths during Israeli operations near aid distribution centers. The Israeli military announced plans for aid airdrops into Gaza and humanitarian pauses in civilian areas to improve aid delivery. Oxfam's Bushra Khalidi asserts that Israeli restrictions are causing starvation among Gaza's most vulnerable populations, preventing them from accessing available assistance. Healthcare Workers Watch, WHAM, reports that 28 doctors from Gaza are being held in Israeli prisons without charges, with 21 detained for over 400 days. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has accused Israel of clearly violating international law by obstructing aid into Gaza, while also stating that Australia currently has no plans to recognize a Palestinian state. United States. Donald Trump recently criticized European leaders about immigration policies, urging them to get your act together. Trump also voiced disapproval of wind turbines during a meeting in Scotland with European Commission. President Ursula von der Leyen, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, announced the deportation of 100 individuals from the Alligator Alcatraz detention camp, clarifying hundreds of undocumented immigrants have been removed, with the majority transferred to other facilities within the U.S. Following the Gaza war, a U.S. man convicted of the hate crime murder of Wadi al-Fayoumi, a Palestinian-American boy, died in jail. This murder is considered one of the worst hate crimes in the U.S. since the conflict began. Many U.S. Democrats are advocating for urgent aid delivery to Gaza, but few are openly condemning Israel for its blockade. El Salvador. Lawyers are alleging that Venezuelans expelled by the Trump administration to El Salvador's mega-prison were subjected to state-sanctioned torture, including beatings and unsanitary conditions. José Manuel Ramos Bastidas, one of 252 men sent to the prison, has since returned home to El Tocuyo, Austria. Passengers traveling on a German high-speed ice train experienced a lengthy ordeal, stranded in a tunnel near Vienna for over 6 hours before they were rescued. Malaysia witnessed a significant demonstration in Kuala Lumpur, where thousands of protesters, many wearing black Turun Anwar shirts, called for Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's resignation due to escalating living costs. This protest, organized by opposition forces, represents the first major demonstration in Malaysia since Anwar's election in 2022. Demonstrators marched to Independence Square, where opposition leaders addressed the crowd. Turning to the United States, a law enforcement training facility in Los Angeles County is currently under scrutiny after an explosion killed 3 sheriff's deputies, and a grenade remains unaccounted for. Ukraine is facing a reduction in European Union aid due to ongoing corruption concerns. Protests erupted in Kyiv after Parliament's actions threatened the independence of anti-corruption agencies. Simultaneously, Russia claims to have captured 2 villages in central Ukraine. Recent overnight strikes caused casualties on both sides of the border. Russian forces are reportedly advancing into the Dnipropetrovsk region, escalating the conflict. Turning to the United Kingdom, the government is set to airdrop aid into Gaza, working with Jordan, and will evacuate children in need of medical care. New police data indicates a link between public violent disorder and domestic violence, with 41% of those arrested after last summer's riots having previous domestic abuse reports. Turkey grapples with record-breaking heat, reaching 50.5 degrees Celsius, escalating wildfire concerns across southeastern Europe. In archaeological news, an ancient site in southeastern Turkey is prompting a revaluation of established narratives concerning the dawn of civilization. Amidst global economic shifts, the United States saw Federal Reserve officials signaling potential interest rate hikes to combat persistent inflation, impacting markets worldwide. Simultaneously, the U.S. Justice Department has launched an antitrust investigation into Live Nation Entertainment, focusing on its potential monopoly in the concert industry. Shifting focus to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced new measures aimed at bolstering the country's cybersecurity infrastructure in response to escalating global threats. Furthermore, Canada is facing increasing pressure to address Indigenous land rights as disputes over resource extraction intensify. Pakistan is edging closer to a trade agreement with the United States, according to Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, though a definitive timeline remains unspecified by Washington. Adding to the country's challenges, a glacial floods alert has been issued for northwest Pakistan, a region popular with tourists, anticipating severe rainfall. This alert underscores the escalating threat of climate change to Pakistan's food security, with scientific consensus pointing to a perilous new normal in weather patterns since the devastating floods 3 years ago that inundated a third of the nation. Separately, a prominent civil rights organization in Pakistan has reported experiencing intimidation and harassment from authorities, sparking worries about the increasing risks faced by rights advocates within the country. Patrick Ryan, a controversial figure known as the Terror Priest for his support of the IRA, passed away at the age of 94. According to his biographer, Jennifer O'Leary, Ryan played a significant role in aiding the Irish Republican Army, allegedly funneling both money and weapons from Libya to the organization. O'Leary also claimed that Ryan was involved in bombings. Russia has announced the capture of 2 villages in central Ukraine, signaling an intensification of conflict as Russian troops push into the Dnipropetrovsk region. Ukraine and Russia have both suffered casualties from overnight strikes, with at least 2 deaths reported in each country following exchanged aerial assaults. The search for missing combatants has intensified, as demonstrated by Irina Krenina's search for her partner, who was eventually located as a prisoner of war after disappearing during combat in Ukraine. Concurrently, the Russian community group has seen rising popularity, driven by its emphasis on advocating for the interests of ethnic Russians. Australia saw 2 of its citizens, journalist Tanya Safi and human rights activist Robert Martin, detained following an Israeli interception of a Gaza-bound aid vessel, a move condemned by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. Adding to the nation's concerns, Australia is grappling with anxieties surrounding the data security protocols employed by its political entities. The recent ransomware assault on Clive Palmer's trumpet of Patriots and United Australia parties has highlighted the lack of standard data protection rules governing these organizations, potentially exposing privacy vulnerabilities. Thailand is currently embroiled in heightened border disputes with Cambodia, fueled by animosity between former leaders Hun Sen and Thaksin Shinawatra. This conflict has regrettably led to at least 33 fatalities. The clashes have also forced over 150,000 individuals to leave their homes. Despite mutual accusations of aggression, Thailand has indicated a willingness to engage in discussion. Cambodia's ongoing border conflict with Thailand has resulted in significant casualties and displacement. The dispute, rooted in the historical rivalry between former Prime Ministers Hun Sen and Thaksin Shinawatra, continues to escalate. The situation has garnered international attention, with mounting pressure for a ceasefire. Adding to the international discourse, the United States, under President Donald Trump, has stated that both Thai and Cambodian leaders have expressed their desire for an immediate end to the hostilities. This statement underscores the urgency of de-escalation and peaceful resolution to the conflict. Canada is facing increased firearm smuggling from the U.S., a problem intensified by the ongoing U.S. trade war, which overshadows discussions on gun control and border security. Meanwhile, in Toronto, lawyer David Shelnut leads cyclists in protesting a law that could remove bike lanes, a move they argue compromises street safety. India recently addressed misinformation regarding its football coaching selection. The All India Football Federation clarified that applications purportedly from Xavi Hernandez and Pep Guardiola were, in fact, fraudulent. Meanwhile, southern India is grappling with a Nipah virus outbreak. This zoonotic disease poses a significant public health challenge. Shifting to international relations, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to the Maldives underscored India's commitment to supporting the Maldivian people. Discussions focused on bolstering political and economic cooperation between the 2 countries. Cambodia is embroiled in a tense border dispute with Thailand, leading to armed clashes and mass displacement. Over 35,000 Cambodians have been forced to flee their homes due to the escalating violence. The conflict marks the deadliest confrontation between the two nations in over a decade. Shifting focus to Thailand, the ongoing border conflict has also displaced a significant number of its citizens. Specifically, 131,000 Thais have been displaced by the fighting along the contentious border region. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, urging both countries to de-escalate tensions and seek a peaceful resolution. Amidst the escalating conflict, Donald Trump asserted that Thailand and Cambodia had agreed to hold immediate ceasefire talks. Trump further stated that he would suspend trade negotiations with both countries until the armed conflict ceases. The Maldives celebrated its Independence Day with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India as the guest of honor at Republic Square. Modi received a warm reception throughout the celebrations. Mexico recently witnessed a political uproar after a local mayor removed statues of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara from Jardín Tabacalera. The move triggered immediate protests. Condemnation followed from high-ranking officials within the national government. These figures, iconic leaders of the Cuban Revolution, notably joined forces in Mexico in 1955, adding historical weight to the controversy. In Sudan, a rival administration has emerged, spearheaded by the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, the RSF leader, will head the Presidential Council. Abdelaziz al-Hilu, leading the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North, CLN, will serve as Dagalo's deputy. This coalition aims to establish a secular, democratic, and decentralized Sudan. The announcement occurs amidst continued conflict and reports of human rights violations. Iran is grappling with the aftermath of a deadly attack in Sistan Baluchistan province. The jihadist separatist group Jaish al-Adl targeted a courthouse, causing the deaths of at least 6 civilians. Among the deceased were a mother and her child. 22 other individuals sustained injuries in the assault. Unknown gunmen were involved in the attack. They also used a hand grenade, further escalating the violence within the courthouse. Cameroon faces rising tensions as Maurice Kamto, the primary challenger to President Paul Biya, was barred from participating in the forthcoming presidential election. The exclusion has sparked worries about potential political instability. Kenya is experiencing an influx of African Americans who are relocating to the nation, seeking a deeper connection with their ancestral roots and cultural heritage. This movement is often described within the Black community as a profound sense of coming home. North Korea commemorated the anniversary of the Korean War Armistice Agreement, signed with the United States and China on July 27, 1953, which ended the 3-year war. Leader Kim Jong-un pledged victory in the continuing anti-U.S. struggle. Okay, I understand. I will only summarize news snippets that focus on governance, international relations, major policies, and societal trends. I will begin each country's summary with the country name in the first sentence. Use short and clear sentences, prioritize concise yet expressive narration. Avoid unnecessary phrases like finally, and ensure all critical details are included. I will also avoid bolding, italics, or special formatting. I will aim for a smooth, rhythmic flow and prioritize accuracy. I will expand summaries of 3 lines or fewer with additional context. Spain is currently grappling with a massive influx of invasive seaweed along its southern coast and the Strait of Gibraltar. The seaweed originating from Southeast Asia is estimated to weigh thousands of tons. This environmental crisis threatens the region's delicate biodiversity. Greece witnessed a bomb attack on the residence of Konstantinos Varsamis, president of the Greek Association of Prison Guards in Thessaloniki, resulting in injuries to 2 individuals. Meanwhile, near Athens, wildfires prompted evacuation orders in a suburban area, exacerbated by arid conditions and elevated temperatures. Bulgaria is currently gripped by widespread protests following the arrest of a pro-EU mayor. Citizens are taking to the streets in large numbers, decrying what they perceive as political interference in the judicial process. Many protesters believe the European Union is turning a blind eye to corruption in Bulgaria, prioritizing political expediency over justice. The demonstrations highlight growing public discontent with the state of governance and the perceived lack of accountability. Nigeria is facing a critical situation as Doctors Without Borders, MSF, has reported a severe malnutrition crisis in the northern part of the country. Tragically, over 600 children have died in just 6 months because of inadequate care and widespread malnutrition. The organization is calling for increased efforts to address the root causes of the crisis and provide sufficient resources to save lives. The crucial EU-US trading partnership faces potential strain as tariff deal negotiations remain unresolved. Hong Kong's National Security Police escalated their crackdown on dissent by issuing arrest warrants for 19 overseas activists. These individuals are allegedly connected to the pro-democracy organization, Hong Kong Parliament, and are accused of subversion under the national security law. Across the United Kingdom, widespread protests marked President Donald Trump's visit, reflecting public disapproval of both Trump and UK officials who hosted him. Trump's itinerary included leisure time spent golfing at his Scottish golf course. Germany is experiencing a surge in the installation of air conditioning units, even in rental properties. This trend reflects growing concern among German citizens about the increasing frequency and intensity of heat waves in recent years. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.